for today's class, what I'm thinking is I'd like to do sort of a beginner focused class. Of course, we can all benefit. Thank you so much. We can all benefit from doing beginner stuff anytime. I heard a quote once that said, every morning I wake up, I become a beginner, because we're brand new to this day. We don't know what this day will hold. We're new to whatever experiences will happen, how our bodies and our minds will feel in this day. So you are a beginner every time you wake up and step into a new moment. So yeah, I kind of want to embrace that philosophy in today's class and just get into some of the basics of yoga, as well as in that establish a nice root connection. This week I did a mantra instead of a quote, and it's root down to rise up, which you've probably heard maybe in yoga classes before or on cute little pictures on the internet or something. But it really is a pretty powerful quote, because if we have our roots established, then we're actually able to rise up and not only support ourselves better and our dreams, our passions, and do the more heart-opening stuff of life, but we're also able to help other people with that security established. So I'll kind of be speaking to that a little bit in my class today. We'll really focus on the feet and on the connection to the earth in the poses, and how we can find our mountain pose feeling in all of the poses. So yeah, I'm excited to get into that. I just love getting back to the basics of the practice and sort of reestablishing why I'm here, and just how simple but also profound yoga can be. So we're going to do some deeper stretches in today's practice. We'll do some yin-like stuff. Helen, I'll throw that in there for you. And then we'll also do some flowy kind of things, but nothing too crazy today. So we'll keep it simple and really focus on just establishing that rooted sensation. So yeah, if you're tuning in, I'm so grateful you're here. It might be nice to have some sort of support during the practice. I have my little block friend positioned on my mat over there, and that's really helpful, especially for those deeper stretches as we get into the tighter nooks and crannies of the body. So if you don't have a yoga block at home, you can use household items, and you could use some sort of pillow rolled up instead, or a blanket, or you could use a couple of books if you don't mind sitting on your books. So there's ways around it if you don't have a yoga block, but if you do have one, make sure you have that for the practice. So I'm thinking that we'll actually start in child's pose today. So as you come down, just position yourself in a tabletop position. Take your knees apart and your big toes together to touch, and then begin to sit back towards your heels. You can take your block or your blanket under your chest if you need a little bit of support. And then just begin to release your arms and your forehead down toward the earth. And you'll just start by taking a few deep breaths, maybe specifically sending those breaths into your upper back. And after a few breaths, just take a moment to notice where your body is connected with the earth, where you feel your breath moving through the body. And just taking a moment to notice the security you feel as you sink into the earth. And let's just take about 3 more breaths here. And then on your next breath in, slowly begin to walk yourself up. We'll come up into a tabletop pose for a minute, and go ahead and just begin to sit back toward the heels. If you'd like to sit onto a prop, you can sit onto a block or a blanket to support you. And just take a couple of moments there getting yourself settled in. I'll actually turn to face you guys here. We'll just take a moment to lift the arms upward toward the sky as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, allow the hands to come together at the heart. Gently bow through the head. And just notice the heart beating here. Just kind of settling into that rhythm. Maybe setting an intention for your practice. It could be just to focus on the fact that you're here, that you're grounded into this moment, this pose, this breath. You're not getting uprooted, you're not being pushed anywhere, you're able to really settle in. And let's take one more breath here. Maybe make it a cleansing breath, breathing in through your nose and sigh it out of your mouth. Good. From here, begin to interlace the fingers and begin to push those palms toward the space out in front of you. Just kind of stretching through the backs of the hands. The hands are actually a big part of something that we ground in our yoga practice. So sometimes they are our feet, especially if you practice handstands. I'm just kind of releasing through the knuckles here. Feeling your hips land heavily in toward the earth. We'll begin to lift the arms upward toward the sky. Keep the palms and fingers interlaced here, and just begin to send the arms slightly out toward either side, getting a stretch through the outer arms. Good, and then from here we're going to begin to release one hand down to the side, reaching the other hand up and overhead, just kind of letting your arm dangle. Taking some deep breaths into the side body, the lungs, the ribs. And when you're ready, we'll come through center and move over to the other side. Nothing is ever glued down. Even though you're rooted in the practice, you can always wiggle around to find your sweet spot in the poses. Good, and then coming back to center from here, just release the block out from underneath your hips and begin to come into your tabletop. And we'll start to move through some cat-cow rotations for the spine. So slowly placing your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. Once you're there, just begin to firmly press down through the tops of the feet. So uncurl your toes, really press the fronts of the ankles into the floor. Take an inhale, reach your heart forward, lift your tailbone high. As you exhale, gently round the back, letting the head and neck totally relax here. Inhale, heart reaches forward. Exhale, round the back. You can keep going in the same fashion, just going front and back, extension and flexion through the spine. If you want to add any different movements, so you're welcome to. See that your knees and your hands are grounded. You're able to move around freely as it feels right in the body. So the rest of you has the ability to rise up in ways that feel good and nourishing. The next time you come into your angry cat position with the back rounded, go ahead and perch yourself up onto the fingertips here. Rounding through your upper back, let your head and neck totally relax here and breathe into that space in between the shoulder blades. If you shift your hips just gently back and side to side, you'll get a little stretch through the shoulders and the side body. And then once you feel balanced, allow those palms to land back down. We're going to curl all 10 toes under here and just slowly begin to walk your hips back towards your heels. Now this is pretty intense in the toes. It strengthens the front of the ankles as well as helps open up those joints through the feet. So just be gentle with yourself. You can continue to keep your hands forward or walk your hands back and maybe up the knees, up the legs, sitting all the way onto the heels. And just kind of experiment with that sensation. This is one of those poses that tends to grow more intense over time, so just be gentle with yourself. While you're here, if you want to distract yourself a little bit and your arms are free, you can move into a little shoulder stretch, taking the hands over to one side and then dropping the ears toward the shoulders. Make sure you do both sides if you're doing that variation. And as the intensity grows through the feet, make sure that you continue to breathe, and your tailbone might want to send itself back to alleviate that pressure that's going downward, but continue to root your tailbone downward. Don't be afraid of leaning into that discomfort. And let's take 2 more breaths. Coming back to neutral, if you are doing those neck stretches, slowly place the hands forward, uncurl those toes, and just begin to pat your feet onto the earth. Maybe scare your dog. Maybe pick up the feet and roll the ankles around a couple of times. Stretch out the toes. And then from here, we'll remain in our tabletop. So if you do have sensitive knees, you can always pad your knees with a blanket. We'll send that left leg to the back of the mat and just tuck the toes under, pulsing in and out of a nice stretch through the back of the leg. After a few moments doing that, go ahead and lift that left leg up, keeping the hip the heel about as high as the hip. So those toes are turned downward to help you do that squared hip action. And then you can stay here or experiment with walking the right fingertips forward, maybe just pressing the fingertips to the earth, or maybe you hover the hand so that the wrist is level with the shoulder. And as you're lengthening out here, also think about rooting in. So drawing the right shoulder back, the left hip bone in toward, the left leg bone in toward the hip socket. And the deeper you breathe here, the more benefit you get. Let's take 2 more big breaths in and out. Last one. Your next inhale, lift everything another inch, maybe a little smile. As you exhale, slowly draw the knee to the elbow, rounding through your back. Inhale, send it out long. Exhale, draw it in close. 1 more of those. Inhale. Exhale. Good. This time as you draw it in close, place that right hand back down to the earth. Begin to send your left knee out to the side and make some big circles with your knees so that you're stretching out and releasing through the hip joint. Go about 2 or 3 times in both directions here. And then eventually we'll send that left foot back down to the back of the mat once more. Take a big inhale here. As you exhale, you're gonna slide that left foot off of the mat a little bit so you can melt your chest down toward the right thigh. Walk your hands forward. So it's kind of like your pigeon pose, but not completely because you're not opening out your hip. So let your elbows and forearms land, your head and neck relax. And then on your next breath, slowly begin to pick yourself back up. Lifting that left leg with you as you breathe in. As you breathe out, draw the knee forward to the nose and step the foot through. From here, you might want to adjust. So I usually pick up my back knee, scoot it back a little bit till I find a good amount of depth in the hips. Maybe uncurl the toes, pressing through the top of the foot and the front of the ankle. When you're ready, rise up. So in order to get really established here, to get grounded, we're going to think about kind of drawing that outer left hip towards your right inner thigh. So you feel a nice source of strength here. And then once you can maintain that strength, allow your hips to sink into the flexibility of the pose. When you're ready, arms will lift upward toward the sky. Exhale, think about sending your weight into the heel bone of that left foot. Any variation you'd like with the arms, experiment with this idea of rooting down so that you can rise up. Let's take about 2 more breaths right here. Last one in. And as you exhale, slowly release the hands down to the earth. Begin to straighten out your left leg to your version of straight. So maybe keep a micro bend in the knee. Take an inhale as you lift yourself halfway up. Exhale to fold. And just letting the head and neck relax. Sometimes we hold on to stress and tension there. Allow those spots to go as well. And then from here, we'll begin to bend into that left knee once more. Tuck through those right toes, lift the right knee up. And we're gonna spin open into a star pose. So heels in, toes out. Take an inhale, lift your arms upward toward the sky. As you exhale, bend into your knees, let your arms drop into cactus arms. Feeling your tailbone root downward, your heels and the two sides of the front of your foot root into the earth as well. Inhale, we'll straighten everything out, back to star pose, maybe even opening your heart, feeling the feet root down. Exhale, sink in. One more just like that, inhale. Exhale. Good, this time as you come up, turn all 10 toes forward toward the blank wall, breathing in. And then as you breathe out, spin your hands around toward the back of the mat, transition all the way around to the top, coming to a runner's lunge. So you'll transition on the feet. And then from here, we'll slowly step back into a plank position. First one of today. Sending your tailbone towards your heels. Take a big breath in. As you exhale, tap your knees, your chest, and your chin all the way down to the earth. Uncurl the toes behind you. On an inhale, press into your palms gently as you lift your chest. Keep your elbows bent and your shoulders relaxed. One more big inhale. As you exhale, slowly lower down, bend into your knees and gently drop your legs side to side like little windshield wipers. When you're ready, pressing up and back, making your way back to your child's pose. Take about 4 breaths here, just feeling the effects of those first few poses on the body as you breathe. Continue to think about sinking in here, really just releasing and allowing yourself to be in this moment. Grounding yourself in here. On your next breath, we'll come back up into our tabletop position. Shoulders above the wrists, hips above the knees. When you're ready, we'll take the right foot to the back of the mat, tuck the toes under, and just come into a little stretch here. So pulsing in and out of a stretch through the back of the leg, the ankle, the calf. After a few rounds of that pulsation, lift your right heel up about as high as the hip. You can even look underneath you, make sure that all 5 toes point down. This is where we start to really trust where we're rooted down. So your right hand is going to stay. Spread those right fingertips wide and apart from one another. We'll begin to walk that left hand forward, maybe to your little doggy ear here. Oh. And then maybe lifting your left arm up, reaching into your spinal balance. So stabilizing here, even though you're reaching out long, you're also drawing things in to engage your core. And then really just focus on the movement of your breath here. Even though your body is finding stillness, your breath is always fluid. Good, one more breath in, maybe lifting everything up another inch. As you breathe out, draw your knee forward to your elbow, rounding through your back. Inhale, send it out long. Exhale, draw it in close. One more just like that, inhale. Exhale. Good, this time keep your knee in close, release your hand down, and begin to move the knee around in some circles. So go a few times in either direction. Try not to be too methodical about it, just allow yourself to feel your way through. Good, after your balance, send that leg straight back. We're going to tuck those toes under, begin to just slide that right foot back so that you can melt over that left leg. Walking your hands forward, letting your chest sink. And then when you're ready, slowly begin to pick up the chest, lifting that right leg up, breathing in. As you breathe out, draw the knee forward to the nose and gently step the foot through. Again, adjusting the back leg until you find a good amount of stretch through your legs. Uncurl the back toes, really press through the front of that ankle to support you, and then begin to make your way up into your kneeling crescent. Thinking about wrapping the outer right hip toward the left inner thigh, just a subtle muscle movement. And then if you're ready for it, lift the arms up to the sky. Any kind of movement here that you'd like through the arms, the heart. Just continue to think about rooting down through your feet, allowing your hips, your pelvis to sink in toward the floor. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Last one in. And as you exhale, slowly release those hands down to the floor. Begin to shift your hips back, finding your way into a half split. Take an inhale once you get there. Rise up halfway, breathing in deeply. And then as you breathe out, fold down. Good. Let's do this for one more breath here. When you're ready, slowly coming forward. Begin to place your hands down on either side of that left foot so you can lift your right knee up and rise up and open into your star pose. So toes out, heels in. Make sure they're not too far or too close. Take a big breath in here as you lift the arms up. As you exhale, bend into your knees. So the knees are going to track over the ankles. Don't let them fall in too much. Try to keep the outer hips nice and engaged, the tailbone rooting down. Maybe your elbows land into a bent position as well. Inhale, lift back up. Maybe opening up the heart. Exhale, sinking in. Good, let's do it one more time. Inhale. Exhale. Good, this time we'll hold onto our goddess pose. You can take the arms wide here. You can bring the hands to the heart, whatever you'd prefer to do. One more breath, just building a little heat through the body here. Inhale, arms will lift up. Turning those toes forward, we're just going to sweep toward the back of the mat, making your way all the way around into a runner's lunge. Once you land, plant the hands down, step back into your plank pose. As you exhale, you can pass through a traditional flow or tap your knees down. Begin to shift your weight forward. Bend at your elbows until they're about 90 degrees, maybe a little more or less. Looking forward, hold on to your chaturanga. So a little heat through the arms here. Let's take one more big breath in. As you exhale, land all the way down to the earth. Inhale, gently press into the hands, lift the heart. And as you exhale, making your way back into a child's pose. From here, we'll come forward into our tabletop position. Tucking the toes behind you, begin to gently lift the knees, lift the hips up, coming into your first downward facing dog. Once you arrive, you can kind of adjust, pedal out the legs, whatever will feel nice for your body. Eventually, we're going to bend the knees, look forward as you breathe in, push all the air out, and then take a few little steps all the way up to the top of the mat. Take an inhale as you lift halfway up. As you exhale, fold down. Good, hanging out in your forward fold here for a few breaths, just allowing yourself to land, to sink, to really trust those feet to hold you where you are. As you lift up halfway this next round of breath, go ahead and place your hands to the shins, lift up all 10 toes, and just gently roll your feet side to side. Feeling both sides of the ball mound and both sides of the heel really press and root, and then just ever so gently place those toes back down. So they're not gripping, they're trusting the rest of the foot to do the hard work here. Take an inhale as you reach your arms forward, put a little bend in your knees, rise all the way up to standing Tadasana, mountain pose. Once you come up, draw the hands together at the heart, allow your hips to settle, tailbone to sink, and just feel the warmth building through the body. Noticing your heartbeat, that kind of plumb line of your body, reminding you that you are here, you're alive. We'll take one more breath. From here, we'll release those hands down at the sides. Take a look down at your feet. Notice if they're still feeling firmly connected to the earth. And then allow that same energy of rooting energy into the earth to begin to move upward through the body. So feel the legs slightly engage, the belly slightly engages, the hips slightly sink. And then once all of that is in place, your shoulders can roll up and around a little more freely. Your palms can face forward, the crown of your head can lift upward. Root down to rise up. Noticing the pulse as it moves through the body. Let's take one more breath right here. On an inhale, lift the arms up. As you exhale, begin to bend your knees, sitting into Utkatasana, chair pose, also known as fierce pose. Noticing those same elements, that rooting, grounding sensation here that we just had in our mountain pose, translated here a little bit differently. As the body reorients itself, can you still maintain that firm four corner of the foot connection? Leg engagement is slightly up, but chest and shoulders are doing the same thing, relaxing and settling. Imagine sending the muscles of the outer hips toward the space behind you. Let's take one more breath. And then exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale as you lift halfway up. As you exhale, plant the hands, step back into a plank pose from here. In your plank pose, we're just going to begin to shift to the corners or the inside of that left foot and the outside of the right foot, so you can lift your left arm up and open for a modified side plank. Now you can stay here with the feet staggered, or you can stack the feet, but find that same mountain pose element here in this position. And then notice you're rooting down through your hand and the corner of that right foot behind you. Maybe you can lift your hips, you can let your arm and your heart be open and free. This is about as hard as it gets today. Let's take one more breath. Slowly releasing that left hand down. We're just going to go to the other side. So start with staggered feet. You're on the big toe edge of the right foot, pinky edge of the left. Once you get established, you can decide to maybe add on by placing the right foot on top of the left. Pads of those left fingers pressing into the earth to make your wrist a little more buoyant. Finding that mountain pose engagement here. Let's take one more big inhale. As you exhale, release that right hand down, coming into your plank pose. Notice how similar it is to that side plank to your mountain pose. Slowly begin to tap the knees, the chest, and the chin down, maybe coming into that chaturanga variation. Inhale, press into the tops of the feet, lift your thighs, lift your heart as you straighten your arms for upward facing dog. Take one more inhale here. And then as you exhale, making your way up and back into downward facing dog. You can bend the knees as much as you need to here. Good, and from here we'll slowly begin to lift that left leg up to the sky, breathing in. As you breathe out, slowly draw the knee forward toward the nose and step that foot through. Coming into a runner's lunge. From here, we'll rise up into our full crescent lunge. Arms will lift, hips will settle. We'll take one more breath in here. As you exhale, we're just gonna lean forward so you can come up into one-legged mountain. Right knee drawing up and in towards your chest. Left foot is firmly planted. I'll turn to face you guys so you can see your options. We're gonna come into tree pose here. So you can place that right foot to the inner ankle of that left leg or to the inner calf. So you start to practice your balance, having your foot totally off the floor. Or you can bring that foot above the knee joint to the inner thigh. Now this is the same thing as our mountain pose. Left leg is still strongly in mountain pose, but your right leg is doing the same thing and the hip is just open. So think about pressing your right foot into your left leg like it's standing into the floor, and then let your left leg almost push back like it is the floor. So it's just as strong as the earth beneath you. Your hands can go wherever it's comfortable for you. We'll take about 5 more breaths here. So maybe steady your gaze to a drishti, point of focus that works for you. Good, continue to breathe here. Wherever you are, you can always fall and get back up. We'll take 1 more. Slowly drawing that right knee up and in toward the nose. As you exhale, step that leg back and we'll open out into our warrior 2. So that left heel kind of cuts toward the center line of that right foot as the arms open wide. Take an inhale as you flip your left palm, reverse your warrior here. Maybe letting that left arm drape over the head. Take a big inhale. As you exhale, cartwheel those hands down. And we'll step back into our plank pose with that left leg lifted. We'll tap the right knee down though, so we're in that tabletop with the leg lifted. Gently spin the right toes to the right, land the left toes behind you as you lift the left arm up and open. Modified wild thing. Heart lifts. Breathing into the areas of discomfort, of openness, and notice where you are rooted. When you're ready, slowly come back around. You can step back and move through a flow, or you can skip it and just go right back to down dog, whatever works for you. This is really the only standing sequence I have in store for you guys. So be gentle, take what you need, add on if you need more. From here, we're going to begin to lift that right leg up to the sky, taking a big breath in here. As you breathe out, draw the knee forward toward the nose, push the air totally out, and then step the foot through. Getting set up, just as we did before, finding that amount of strength through the legs to support you. When you're ready, arms will lift. Then let your exhale almost send you downward energy-wise, just allowing you to kind of settle. We'll take 1 more big breath in here. As you exhale, slowly begin to lunge forward, coming into your standing mountain with the left leg lifted. We'll move in toward our tree pose, so that left heel can come to the inner right ankle, or you can lift it up, more balanced to the inner calf, or maybe help that foot to the inside of your right thigh. But don't just let the foot press into the thigh so you fall over to the right. Really let your right leg also push into that left foot. So it's almost like a little suction cup action. And we'll take about 3 more breaths here, using your breaths as a way to calm the nervous system. And then gently on your next breath, slowly begin to draw that left knee up and into the chest. As you exhale, we'll step the left foot back, coming into our warrior 2 here. Right leg is forward, so getting your legs set up first, and then allow yourself to settle. So once you have that rooting sensation, the arms can kind of do whatever feels best. It creates that freedom for us to just move and breathe however we need to. Once you're settled in, we're going to flip that right palm, begin to reverse your warrior 2, leaning up and back, stretching out through the side body, maybe just letting that right arm drape overhead. Continuing to breathe fully and deeply through the lungs. Let's take 1 more really big breath in. And as you breathe out, slowly begin to cartwheel those hands all the way down to the earth. Spin to the ball of the back foot, and you can step back, maybe move through a flow. Actually, before you do that, tap your left knee down to the earth. Can't forget this. Spin the left toes out. Right toes land as that right arm lifts up and open. Modified wild thing. This is a great way to teach your body how to really engage and open the front body. Now, eventually coming back around, you can move through a flow here if you'd prefer, or just come back to down dog or child's pose. Totally up to you. And just kind of following what your energy level might need. And we'll take a cleansing breath once you land. So allow your eyes to close. Take a big breath in through the nose, and then open your mouth side out. Good, and then from here, we'll slowly begin to come back up into our tabletop position. We're gonna move toward a pigeon variation here. So we're gonna begin to take that left knee forward toward the left wrist. You're gonna walk the left foot over toward the right side, and then you're gonna slowly begin to sit down to the left side just a bit so you can slide that right leg up the side of the mat. So your right shin is parallel with the long edge of the mat, and your left shin is parallel with the top of the mat. Now you can kind of experiment with whatever angle you'd prefer to fold into here. I like to go straight forward, but some people prefer to fold slightly to the left or right. So it's up to you. Your right hip will lift up a bit. That's totally fine. Just begin to melt forward when you're ready. You're not in a hurry to touch the floor to find any specific place in the pose, so just find some sensation and rest into it. So this is a nice opener for your pigeon pose. So if you're sticking with this pose today, if this feels like plenty in your hip, then you're welcome to stay. But if you'd like to experiment with a little bit more, I like to have my block handy. And if you want to come into your full or half pigeon is technically what it's called, you'll take your right leg back behind you. And you'll probably notice that your hips are a little elevated here, especially if you're new to the pose. Just slide a block or blanket under your hips to close out that space. Basically bringing the earth to you so you can still root down. And then you can fold over from here. This variation is just a deeper stretch through the front of the thigh, and a little deeper through that outer left hip as well. And we'll take just a little bit more time here. About 5 more breaths. This is kind of more of a yin-like posture here. Yin is just a deep stretching practice where you get to hold things a little longer and you access those deeper tissues in the body, so deeper than your muscles, getting into more of the tissues that surround your joints, your bones. Last 2 breaths. And then when you're ready, slowly begin to press into the hands. Gently scoot your back knee in just a little bit so that you can remove that left leg, sending it back behind you. Now you're welcome to take any kind of stretch here you might want to release that pose, maybe your modified wild thing once more, or maybe something else is calling out to you. But eventually we'll just move right into the other side. So you'll take that right knee forward to the right wrist, starting with that deer variation, that pose where we had the other leg slide up the side. And I didn't mention this before, but this foot can either turn to face the back of the room if your ankle and your knee are happy with that, or you can turn your toes out to the side and just come to the inside of the foot. When you're ready, you can begin to fold forward. Maybe this side feels slightly different. That's totally cool. Change it up if you need to. Then you can stay here if this is plenty of sensation for you on this side. If you tried the other variation before, go ahead and try it here. So you'll slide that left leg to the back of the mat, squaring your hips off a little more. So you want your hips to not be falling to one side for this one. So maybe use your block if it's helpful. And then begin to fold forward from here. Wherever you start to feel the pose most in your body, send your breath into that space. That's generally where you need that chemical reaction of release to the muscle fibers to take place. Maybe over time you find you can find a little more space, a little more heaviness, that sense of rooting into the earth. We do a lot of resisting the earth in our lives and even in our yoga practices. So in this moment, maybe you just let gravity take over fully. And we'll take about another minute here, just really settling in. Taking one more breath wherever you are. Make it your biggest, fullest breath of the day. Maybe releasing it out of your mouth. And then slowly, mindfully begin to make your way out of the pose you're in. Again, taking any stretches you need for that leg that was forward, any kind of counter pose or movement. And then eventually, we're going to move into a nice deep shoulder stretch. So if you guys were looking for shoulder stretches, I think that was someone's request. This is going to be a really nice option if you're not familiar with it. So you'll come down to your belly, slowly. And then you're going to take your left arm out to the left side. Palm can face down or up, depending on what feels better for you. Right hand is beneath my right shoulder, and my right knee is going to bend as I turn my gaze to the right. I'll let my head either rest to a blanket or to the floor if it's comfortable. And begin to press yourself over to that left side body. So you're putting more pressure into that left shoulder. Adjust as needed to support yourself. But eventually just let yourself hang here. Your right leg and right arm are kind of your kickstands to keep you balanced. You can stay here or maybe even release that right hand behind your back and just let it hang here. And just continue to breathe into the pose, into the areas that you're feeling this most through the body. We'll take about another minute here, so spending some time on this left shoulder. When you're ready, we'll slowly begin to make our way back to the belly. Take your time as you unravel. To counter that pose, you can just stay and kind of rest your arm at the side, or you can thread that left arm across the chest, let the right arm reach forward, and just kind of sink into the other side of that shoulder here. No man. Good. And then when you're ready to release it, we're just going to move to the other side of that shoulder stretch. So this time you'll take the right arm out to the right side, about 90 degrees from the body. And again, the palm can go down or up. This time that left hand will land underneath the left shoulder. Left knee will bend. Take a really big inhale just to prepare. And as you exhale, you'll slowly begin to roll over toward that right side body. Just landing into it, letting your head sink into a prop or onto the floor, whatever feels more supportive. And just begin to take rest here. Continue to breathe. We'll take about another minute's time here, just balancing out, maybe even observing the differences on this side compared to the first. Without judgment or attachment, just allow yourself to be with those differences. Softening through the muscles of your face. It's tempting to tighten up those thinking muscles, those expression muscles. Allow yourself to just be here. Last breath in and out. Slowly begin to make your way back around toward the belly, really gently, taking a counter stretch. So if you threaded the arm under before, do so here. This time the right arm will reach underneath you. When you're ready, slowly begin to release the pose, pressing yourself up and back, sitting back toward the heels here. We're actually just going to drop the hips off to one side. And then you'll want to make sure to have your block nearby. And what we'll do is we're just going to begin to recline back into a supported fish pose. So I would start with your block at the lowest level if you're new to this pose. If you're more practiced, you have an open spine, you're welcome to go a little bit higher. You can even use a rolled blanket instead of a block, which should be a little softer for the spine. But basically, I'm going to nestle the block in between the shoulder blades and let my head and neck totally relax toward the floor. My hips will also be grounded down. So what you'll do is position yourself, slowly come down. Make sure it feels like it's in the right spot, and then eventually just let your head and neck totally relax into it. And just breathe here. And you can always add on. So over time, if you're like, I would love to have more sensation here, you're always welcome to move the block up a level. Just make sure that you can really relax the back of the head downward toward the floor. And if you need to use another prop under the back of the head, you're welcome to. I like to take up some space here in this pose, maybe taking my legs and arms wide. We'll take about another full minute or a minute and a half here, just depending on what you would prefer to do. And just continue to really sink. The temptation here is to resist gravity quite a bit and try to think about lifting up, but really focus on rooting down, and that opening, that upward energy will happen naturally. About 3 more breaths. If you'd like to stay longer, you are of course welcome to. It's the benefit of being able to practice from home. You can do what you want. And then when you're ready, we'll slowly begin to just place the hands behind the back of the head so you can gently draw the chin in toward the chest first, just to kind of find that length through your neck. And then we'll slowly begin to sit up off of the block. From here, you can set your block off to the side. We're gonna grab for the hamstrings, keeping the knees bent, and then we're gonna slowly roll down all the way down to our backs. One little vertebrae at a time. So as you come down, slowly feel each little part of your spine connect with the earth. And then once you're down, we're gonna move into a bridge pose from here. So if you're at home and you prefer the yin version of bridge, you're welcome to support yourself with a block. So what you'll do is you'll bend your knees in toward the hips, placing the arms down alongside the body, or maybe bringing one hand to a block just so you have it handy. And we'll begin to press into the feet, pick the hips up, and move into bridge pose. So if you need a visual, lifting your hips up, tucking the shoulders underneath you, especially if you're staying more active in the pose. I'm gonna take my block and place it under the sacrum. So of course, the higher the block is, the more intense the back bend. So be gentle with yourself. And then just kind of nestle your hips down onto that block, letting your body sink. Again, there's that initial resistance, but let it fade away over time. And then take up space as much as you'd like to. Whatever feels best for your back. Make sure there's no sharp or shooting pain. Always take care of yourself. This is an area that tends to get kind of tight from all the sitting that we tend to do at our computers, on our couches, in our cars. or even bending over to pick up your kiddos. So this is a nice way to kind of counteract that stress through the spine. And we'll take another minute here. So allow your breath to remain steady and see how long and wide and deep you can encourage that breath to move through the system. And of course, you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like, but if you're ready to release it, just gently pick your hips up off the block and come down all the way. You can windshield wiper your knees here, side to side, gently. Giving your back just time to kind of settle into that space before jarring it into a forward fold. So just allowing yourself to take up some time. Eventually, knees can draw into the chest. Once you're there, if it would feel good, you can curl up into a little ball, like a little roly-poly. And then take your arms wide like a T. Maybe drop your knees over to either side for a couple of breaths, just kind of balancing out the spine with a nice twist. Making sure to do both sides an equal amount of time. And from here, just taking any final poses, movements, or stretches you'd like on your way to Shavasana, which is our final resting pose. So just finding a position that you'd like to rest in. So if your back isn't a super comfortable place to land, you're always welcome to come to your side, your belly, or do legs up the wall. But really allow yourself to sink, to root, to feel that connection to the space around you and beneath you. Allow the control over the breath to release as you begin to take rest. Gently begin to deepen your breath, inviting small movement back into your body. Maybe slowly rolling the head side to side, releasing through the neck. Stretching out the toes, the fingertips. And then take your arms, stretch them overhead, giving yourself a nice full body stretch here. Breathing in. And then maybe sigh it out. And then slowly begin to bend your knees, rolling onto one side for a few moments just to observe the sensations, the release that you feel from your practice. And maybe observing that shift that's taken place physically through your body, emotionally in your heart, your feelings, and mentally through your thoughts. And perhaps seeing yourself a little more clearly in this moment because you've just spent some quality time moving and breathing, getting back to the basics. And when you're ready, we'll press up to a comfortable seat if you're not already there. Drawing the hands together at the heart, connecting the palms and feeling the warmth between the hands. A slight bow of the head, just express some gratitude to yourself for the practice that you were able to partake in this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are. Feeling that heart beating right beneath the surface, that gentle reminder that goes with you off of your mat and into your life, that you are here. You are alive, you are present, and you are very truly blessed. So with this encouragement, I want to send you out. Namaste.